Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of this podcast. So, those who are new here, my name is Andromeda lives here E, and today we'll be talking about another movie. So, last week we covered Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, where we talked about the lack of sustainability and also cultural ecology and how that can be applied. But that's from last episode. So, this episode we'll be looking at Ponyo on the Cliff by the Sea. So, also simply known as Ponyo, it's a movie released in 2008 directed by the lovely Hayao Miyazaki, who's also known for movies like Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, and The Wind Rises. So what's the plot about? To summarize, Ponyo is about a movie about this goldfish who really wants to become human, and in her journey to become human, she befriends a 5-year-old boy, Sosuke. Ponyo overcomes challenges like her father and the flood, and reaches a happy ending where she does become human. Sounds very innocent and cute, right? Well, it hides a few ecological themes where humans mess with the ocean without fully understanding the consequences. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Pun intended, of course. So, to look at Ponyo, we will be looking at this through two ecological lenses. So I will be diving into the first, more positive lens, which is none other than ecofeminism. To briefly recap, ecofeminism is essentially linking the oppression of nature with the oppression of women. However, we won't be looking at ecofeminism alone. We'll be looking at one approach of ecofeminism, which is spiritual or cultural ecofeminism. So, spiritual ecofeminism, as North American author Starhawk calls it, is a sort of earth-based spirituality or earth religion where worship of any nature, earth, or fertility deity is painted in a goddess or matriarchal light. One popular example of this is the concept of Mother Nature, that we have to protect Mother Nature because we believe that we are born from her and under her care. So to look at Ponyo, for starters as a titular character, is born from the sea, connecting her to earth. But beyond that, Ponyo isn't meant to be owned by humans or nature guardians. Hence, her escape from her father is a symbol of freedom from an oppressive patriarchal force. There is also her mother, Grandma Mare. Not only is she Ponyo's mother, but she's also the goddess that protects the delicate balance and also the flora and fauna of the sea. Hence, she's the one to protect the people in the retirement home during the flood. She's also the one to cause the flood, showing how nature can be destructive if needed. Therefore, the flood becomes a challenge from Grandma Mare to Ponyo to become human, as Ponyo herself actually disrupted the balance between humans and nature. Wait, pause. What do you mean Ponyo disrupted the balance between humans and nature? Well, this is where we get into our second ecological lenses. So, to recap another popular theory, which would be anthropocentrism. Anthropocentrism is essentially seeing nature as mere resources for human needs and placing humans as above all other living beings. So, for example, we would just see cows as, another resource for beef, like steak and beef jerky and other beef looking things. Oh, and leather too. So that's one common example. So how do you apply this to Ponyo, and how does this disrupt the environment in Ponyo? When you look at the movie, when Ponyo becomes human through her father's magic, the magic she unleashed actually caused a disruption between the balance between humans and the sea. And we can see this through two characters. One is Ponyo herself. Ponyo is technically a sea creature, so turning into a human actually disrupts her own nature of existence. Ponyo's transformation was triggered by Sosuke's blood, which symbolizes how human intervention actually alters natural processes. And not only that, one of her first actions as a human was to search for Sosuke, but in the process, ironically harms other humans, where it causes a tsunami that forces the ships at sea unable to return to land. Meanwhile, on Sosuke's side, it caused a power outage at the retirement home, and the waves crashed harder on the shores when Lisa was driving Sosuke back, Lisa is Sosuke's mother, by the way, which mean that the waves place them both in a dangerous situation. And the waves were caused by who? Ponyo. So that's our first character. Our second character is none other than Ponyo's father, Fujimoto. Fujimoto is actually a human wizard who abandoned terrestrial life to live in the sea. Fujimoto here also develops this water of life that is supposed to revitalize the life of living beings in the sea in hopes to restore the balance between the sea and the land. But apparently also hoping that the sea dominates the land. So you see the problem here? Even if his purpose and it was well-meaning and he wanted to balance nature itself, in the end Fujimoto still indirectly sees the sea as a resource, as he controls the sea and again hopes that it dominates the land. He controls it rather than listening to it, which still supports an anthropocentric view. Hence, ultimately, like father, like daughter, this carries the impacts of an anthropocentric view upon not only nature, but also, ironically, on us humans too. So, how can you relate this to a more modern example? After all, this movie was made and released in 2008. So, I would like to present a very seemingly unrelated question. We all use AI, right? Nowadays, AI is everywhere. It's used in advertisements. We use it to cheat on exams. Trust me, even I use ChatGPT. I'm guilty. But I did not use it for this podcast. Please believe me. I have legitimate sources in my description. But did you know, according to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, one data center uses as much as 5 million gallons of water. That's actually enough to hydrate a small town. That said, why the water usage? It's actually to cool down the servers to make sure that the fragile chips in the server don't become damaged. How is this related to Ponyo, you might ask? Well, water is still viewed as a resource here. This process is usually invisible to us humans, and users actually, and even then, other humans, aka the engineers, still justify it as efficiency. The problem might actually worsen with the emergence of underwater data centers. The used dirty water is actually recycled back into the sea, which not only pollutes the sea, but also disrupts marine life. Just like how humans in Ponyo don't see the ocean's limit, we as a modern society still treats it like an endless resource when in reality, it's actually completely finite and it will drain and go away one day. This is shown not only with droughts, but also with the Aral Sea, where Soviet intervention and experimentation eventually drained and polluted and caused the sea to completely disappear, turning the once beautiful coastal towns around the area to essentially degrade and left to wither and die. Hence, even if Ponyo was released in 2008, we can still see how the values in Ponyo can still reflect in our modern society. So this episode is actually quite personal to me, as it is my favorite childhood movie actually. It wasn't until I entered university and entering this course that turns out my favorite movie carried so many ecological themes. So ultimately, Ponyo warns that neither human dominance nor rigid environmental control can lead to harmony. True balance requires seeing nature as relational and finite, and that is something that's still unfortunately ignored today. After all, think about it. We humans continue to chase prosperity, modernity. We continue to chase that cyberpunk dream that you can see in Chongqing, China today, or Tokyo, Japan. But it still continues to harm us, ironically, even as we place ourselves on the top of the chain. So in conclusion, fantasy didn't exaggerate the problem. It merely predicted it. Thank you again. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I genuinely enjoy going through Ponyo and researching and finding out that there's actually a lot of ecological themes that I think I absorbed in my childhood. So thank you so much for listening and have a nice day.